So happy to see everyone. I'm Laura Lykoot. I'm the Executive Director of the Aquarian Minyan, and you are in for a very, very special treat. You've stumbled onto or come back to or discovered the Aquarian Minyan Yeshiva. This is our adult daytime learning program where we bring the highest, the holiest, the most halaga teachers of all time. So how could we not have the most wonderful woman that we know, Kaufman Dosick, to come to us to bring us her mighty Shechinah power. So this is part one of a two-part series. I'm recording this and I'm also broadcasting it on Facebook Live on the Aquarian Minions Facebook page, where you can find all of our videos from all of our yeshiva classes under our videos tab. That's like our video archive. So if you want to watch this again, or if you can't come next week but you don't want to miss it, you'll find it there. And I want you to just really enjoy this special hour, because how many times do we get to gather together like this with this special woman bringing us her magic? I'll also be putting a link into the chat to our donation site so that you know where to send your sliding scale donation for this class, and we appreciate your support so very much. So without any further ado and yoodly doodly do, go for it, Ellen.
Welcome, everybody. I am just so delighted to see you all. Oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. It's just overwhelming, your beauty. So, so we get to play in amazing places today and next week. And we're going to tell and take in and respond to some of the very oldest stories we have on this earth plane. All of these stories that we're playing in took place somewhere between prehistory, that is longer than 6,500 years ago, up to about 3,200 years ago. And so clearly they were oral history. They were stories that were told from generation to generation for thousands and thousands of years before they were finally written down in some version in the Hebrew. And most scholars think that they were probably first written down somewhere between 2,800 and 3,200 years ago. It's a very long time. We've been playing in these stories for hundreds, if not thousands, of lifetimes. And so the question is, what is so enthralling about these stories? Why do we keep playing with them lifetime after lifetime after lifetime? And I think they are so magical for us because they weave the matrix from which we grow ourselves in 3D. They shape our 3D journey. They're both the lay of the land and the map of its journey. They hold within them the imperfections, the unfinished places, the wounded places that are reflected in each of our lives. And I think these stories talk to those wounded places in each of us. And because the stories are unfinished and wounded themselves, every time we tell them, they find healing and resolution through us. They've really been our guide in many ways through this very, very long 3D journey. And now that we're concluding that journey, we're ready to take a good, clear look at these stories and see what we want to take with us and what we want to let go of and leave behind as we move forward. To look at these stories from a multidimensional perspective, we're going to rise way above them and look at them from a great distance, from a completely different place than we're used to. This isn't the place of scholarship or detailed interpretation or the analytic mind. So join me. If we rise way above it all and look down, what we perceive is the dense, deep, dark, archetypal forest. It's the deep, dark floor of our souls. It's here that we'll play and explore. It is the stuff of our dreaming, of our hearts, of our knowing. I'd like to share with you a really lovely piece to transition into the first story. We're going to tell two stories today. We're going to have a chance to take them in, feel ourselves transform as we take them in, and share that with one another. And so before we jump into the first story, there's a lovely quote by Franz Kafka that I'd love to share with you. It says, "The expulsion from paradise is in its main significance eternal. Consequently, the expulsion from paradise is final, and life in this world, irrevocable. But the eternal nature of the process makes it nevertheless possible that not only could we remain forever in paradise, but that we are currently there in actual fact, no matter whether we know it or not." So, it's always good to begin at the beginning. But where is the beginning? The reality is there is no beginning. There are spirals and spirals and spirals of herstory, all interweaving and overlapping, stories that echo again and again and again in different places in the spirals. If you try and listen with your linear brain, nothing will happen. These are stories that grow and flourish in the multidimensionality of the heart. So open your hearts to that place, that deep, dark core of your being. Just drop yourselves right into that rich place that's messy and chaotic and wonderfully clear all at the same time. That once upon a time place. In the beginning, there was oneness on this earth plane. And this earth was known as the Garden of Eden, a place where all lived in perfect co-creative harmony with one another. And standing at the very heart of the Garden of Eden was the one tree of life and knowledge. And when otherness was introduced to this earth plane, that perfect oneness was broken. And earth fell from the higher consciousness of oneness to the denser consciousness in which separation is possible. And the perfect oneness of the Garden of Eden was broken, and the garden was lost. And humankind lost its perfect alignment with the divine. and was sent wandering in exile far from the oneness of the presence of full source. The divine feminine, the Shechinah, was terribly upset by this, and humankind's exile from full source broke her heart. And in her pain, she vowed that she would not allow this, that she would even separate herself from source, the divine masculine, in order to accompany humankind in its exile, so that humankind could at least always find her and not be completely alone. And when the Shekhinah separated from Source, the one tree of life and knowledge broke into two trees. The tree of life, carrying the divine masculine energy, remained standing upright. But the tree of knowledge, carrying the divine feminine energy, was buried upside down in the earth. And all the feminine wisdom and consciousness went underground for eons and eons. The Shekhinah vowed to remain in exile with humans until they could lift their consciousness once again to the level of oneness, which would bring Eden to earth. And when they could do that, they would once again find that perfect alignment with the divine, and the exile would be over. And then she too could return home to be united with Source, the divine masculine, once again. And at that time, the sun and the moon will be of equal size, and the tree of knowledge will stand upright and will braid and merge with the tree of life until the two trees are one, and earth and all her inhabitants will once again live in the perfect co-creative harmony of oneness, and earth will be known as the Garden of Eden once again. And so we work and work to lift our consciousness and raise our vibration so that we can remember ourselves into oneness. And so, my dear, beautiful friends, tune into your being just for a moment and see or feel or notice what you look like on the inside, how you feel hearing this story. Maybe you can locate a felt sense somewhere in your body or your being. And just take a moment and acquaint yourself with that felt sense. Or with what you look like on the inside now. And see if you can find just a couple of words that will serve even a little bit to describe that felt sense, or what you are aware of within you. And when you have a couple of words, feel free to unmute and share those words so that we can all participate in this universal thing that we're doing. Yes, please go for it.
I am at peace.
Yay, thank you, Renee.
Beauty and splendor.
Oh, how lovely, thank you.
I'm a channel for divine light.
Huh. Wow, thank you.
At oneness with the cosmic consciousness.
Wow.
Grace and joy.
I'm
Grace
sorry, say that again, please.
and joy.
Peace and joy.
Grace
Grace
and joy.
and joy, thank you.
In tune.
Energy
In
coursing
tune.
through my body.
Say, someone was trying to come in when Wayne did. Say it again.
I feel energy coursing through my body.
Ooh, lovely.
I feel light in my heart filling out my whole body.
Ooh. Can you hear the expansion that's happening? This is so lovely. Good. Wow. Keep going.
I am home.
Boy, that's a big one, isn't it? You know, another word for whole is peace, as in shalom and shalem. So, wow, we're getting there. And who else?
Validation. And,
Yes,
and
a
growth.
validate. So, I'm sorry, Diana, say that again.
Growth and expansion, like a flower opening.
Yeah, I love the hands. They say it all. Good, thank you.
I'm healing.
I am healing. Good. And I'm so sorry. Aviva, say it again.
Emanating positive energy.
Good. Good, good, good. How lovely.
Unity.
Truth
Unity.
And resonance.
Yes.
Well, I feel tremendous sadness that this separation happened to begin with. I cannot tell you. Tremendous. I don't even know how to put that into words.
You don't need to, my darling. We're all with you.
And then also, but I also feel very similar, that I am filled with divine love to share with everyone.
Isn't it wonderful how love and grief can actually rest together in a wholeness? Thank you for that, Phyllis.
Well, they're kind of in separate places. They're separate spaces, I guess. You know what I mean?
I do.
The sadness is very deep inside of me, I think, because there's not much I can do about it, but I know about it, so it makes me very sad. But the love is right here. It's right here.
Amen. Thank you. You know, everybody who has shared, you are speaking, of course, for all of us. And so we are grateful and we are all ears to hear ourselves reflected back to ourselves. So
I feel hope and a million dreams that are in essence the one dream.
Oh, lovely. Isn't it just, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jenna, please.
Just a source full of, I was looking inside and full of light. And then when you're talking about the trees, the weaving, like I've been woven back together.
Longing, I feel longing and hopefulness.
Good.
I feel upright. And I was just looking up the word in Hebrew, and I don't want to repeat it incorrectly. I can see it, but I'm not sure what it is in Hebrew. Do you know the word upright in Hebrew?
I don't.
Pronunciation? Well, I'm looking at it, but I don't want to say it wrong, but there would be
so we're going to stay out of our brains and stick with our hearts.
Upright.
upright. It's beautiful. Thank you. And anybody else?
Just saw a vision. I didn't get like the beautiful words people are expressing, which is beautiful. It opens another part of me. But I just saw two rocks kind of grinding on each other.
Oh,
I
wow.
felt uncomfortable.
Oh, Arcy, I love it. Thank you. Yes. So we have expansiveness and love and hope and light, and we also have grief and discomfort and uncomfortableness. And anybody else wish to throw in?
Ellen, what comes to me to add is grace.
Grace. Yes. Good.
And also what you said about, you know what I'm going through right now. And so this notion of love and grief coexisting, it feels so right.
Yes.
Like it's flowing like the feminine energy. It's not, there's no resisting there, just flowing.
Beautiful.
Love and grief.
I feel a new light, a new wave of light, a new name.
Ah. Ooh-wee. Ooh-wee. You know, it just hits me so hard how just hearing a story can begin to facilitate a shift and even just a glimmer of healing, whatever that means. So bless you all. Thank you. Would you like to continue on in the spiral to another story? All right. So, you know, we started with the simplest version. And now we're going, you know, it's like how you tell a story to your child when he's 3, and you tell the same story to him when he's 7, but there are more details. And then the story changes and becomes even more complex when you tell it to him when he's 12. And then he makes up his own story based on the old story when he's 20. And yet a new story that is the same story emerges when he starts telling the story to his children. So in the same way, we're moving to a more complex, more detailed story. So. Once upon a time, in the beginning, before the beginning, there was full source. The 13 aspects of full source, the 12 aspects of source, the divine masculine, and the 13th aspect of full source, the Shechinah, the divine feminine. 12 plus 1, 13. And there was perfect merged union, and full source, God, was one. And there was nothing but God. God was all. And God wished to experience God's self, but for this to happen, there has to be a subject and an object, an experience and an experiencer, an observer and an observed. And so God needed to create, to make the first division, the first separation. But it was impossible because there was no room for any creation, because God took up, was all space. There was only God. And so in order to create, God had to pull God's self back a little bit. God had to contract some of God's self in order to make some space available for creation. We call it the tzimtzum, the contraction, in order to make the void. And from the space of the void could come creation. And you can only imagine all the vibrations and atoms and elements and molecules and suns and planets and galaxies and worlds and universes and souls and beings and realms that Full Source created and nurtured. We read about it all in Genesis, that the divine masculine created, and it was good. The divine feminine nurtured. God created, and it was good. And so in the beginning, Earth was created as a place of fifth dimensional oneness consciousness. Earth was the Garden of Eden, and all lived in co-creative partnership, in harmony, in oneness. And at the heart of the garden stood the one braided tree of life and knowledge, and they all lived happily ever, and it was paradise. And the human beings were. And it was so beautiful that God, Full Source, came to live in the garden, and God would walk out in the evening and take a stroll when the breezes played, and would say hi to the humans who were being. But God was getting bored. God wished for humans to be able to grow into full co-creative partners with Full Source. But these humans in the garden were completely innocent. They had no consciousness. They were like amoebas. They were unaware that they were happy. They were unaware they were living in paradise. They were unaware that they were. And so the humans were invited to eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, of consciousness, of good and evil. They were offered a taste of consciousness. And of course, they immediately became, for the first time, self-conscious. They were aware that they were naked. And if they were self-conscious, it meant that they were conscious that there was a self that was somehow distinct and separate from all others. And they became aware for the first time that there could be an other. And if they were separate from that other, then they could objectively look at that other and judge it to be either good or evil, and they had knowledge of good and evil. And of course, they were moving from William Blake's Song of Innocence to his Song of Experience. And great beings called the Anunnaki came to Earth from their planet of Nibiru to mine her gold. Nibiru was losing its atmosphere, and they needed gold dust in order to maintain that atmosphere and save their planet. And because of their incredibly advanced technology, when they landed, they were called gods with small g's by the humans here. The Anunnaki were outside of the oneness, and they were invited to come to Earth in order to introduce otherness and hold the space for the other. And so now, of course, in oneness, you understand there can be no other. As soon as an other is introduced, there is no more oneness. And so now with the presence of the other recognized by newly conscious humans, Earth fell from the oneness of fifth dimensional consciousness to the denser vibration of 3D, in which separation is possible. And there is room for the other. Our theologians call it the fall from grace. And as that happened, the one tree of life and knowledge standing in the heart of the garden split into two trees, and the tree of life, the masculine, remained standing and erect, and the tree of knowledge, the feminine, was planted upside down in the earth, and much of the intuitive knowing went underground. And in the density of 3D, the veil of forgetfulness is drawn over us, and humans don't remember that everyone and everything is an expression of the divine. And we forget that there is limitless abundance and sourcing. And the garden was lost. And as the separation of death was introduced, human beings began to transform into human doings so that they could stay alive and eat by the sweat of our brows and figure out how to appease the bigger powers so we wouldn't all die in childbirth. And the Anunnaki, the other, the ones here on Earth with such advanced technology, were called upon to support humans in their transformation from 5D creatures to 3D creatures who would be able to survive in a 3D world. And they were happy to help, and amended human DNA and rewired and reprogrammed neural structures and brains and bodies, and shifted and fixed in place the human chakra systems, enabling human beings to become human doings and so be able to survive on Earth. And because of their handiwork in helping to make the new human doing in their image, and because of their amazing technology, they were declared gods and were worshipped, and became the original pantheon of Sumerian gods and goddesses. We know some of their names: Enlil and Enki and Inanna. And we'll get to that story in great detail next week. But in the meantime, back to the fall from the Garden of Eden. So, you know, in the oneness of fifth dimensional consciousness, full source was present in the garden, was God here. And in oneness consciousness, there is no possibility of separation. As soon as there is separation, you have moved from 5D to 3D. You've instantly fallen. But as Earth fell from 5D to 3D, it became impossible for full source to be God here, because in 3D we have the choice to separate, to choose to believe we are separate from others, even from God. So if in 3D separation is a choice, then full source, God, had to remove full source's self from this earth plane in order to honor that free will choosing. And full source, the 13 aspects of full source, God, removed full source's self from this earth plane. And the 13th aspect, the divine feminine, the Shechinah, was terribly upset, was grief-stricken at the thought of humankind being left alone on earth with no easy direct access to the divine. And she made the incredibly painful decision to separate herself from the other 12 aspects of Source, the divine masculine, in order to return to earth to be with humankind so they would at least have access to her. And she came to earth to reside, to live amongst humankind, and to be separate from the divine masculine until such time as humans could raise their consciousness high enough to once again remember the divinity in everyone and everything. Until humankind could once again live in oneness consciousness, at which time humans would understand that there really is no such thing as separation, that all creation is a manifestation of God. And separation is no longer a viable option. At which time the divine masculine could return to earth and join with the Shechinah in sacred union once again, because earth would once again be in fifth dimensional oneness consciousness and would be once again the Garden of Eden. And so the Shechinah joined humankind as the fall from 5D to 3D was taking place. And because she was the only available divine present here, and the fall to 3D and the experience of 3D was so incredibly painful, naturally, she was blamed for the fall and for all the pain and suffering of the flesh, of what came to be called the material world, the world of matter. Matter from the Latin word mater, meaning mother, the pain of this mother world. This mother world was experienced as evil, and for a very long time, this life was seen as hell on earth. And the divine masculine, meantime, the 12 aspects of Source, was in essence banished, exiled from earth, and from the full human 3D journey. Had he returned to earth even for a moment, joining with the Shekhinah here as full Source, would have brought oneness, negating the separation journey that humankind needed to experience in order to grow into full consciousness. The Shekhinah could rise up and join him once a week on Shabbat, but he could never join her here on earth without violating the 3D experience. And so Source, the divine masculine, became the idealized, absent Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And the human dream and goal was to leave the flesh of this 3D veil of tears and ascend to be in heaven for all eternity. Meanwhile, the divine masculine was virtually banished from the full juicy unfolding on this earth plane. He felt left out and worried that maybe he would even be forgotten. He was dematerialized. He was not matter. He did not matter in this mother world. full source breathes in the same way we do. Huge breaths. And you can imagine that those in-breaths and out-breaths are a lot longer than our in-breaths and out-breaths, each of those breaths lasting 3,273 years. And when full source is in an out-breath, a masculine energy serves as God with a small g on this earth plane, and the masculine energy is predominant. And when full source is in an in-breath, a feminine goddess serves on this earth, and the feminine principle and energy is predominant. The masculine is about hierarchies and authority and obedience and loyalty and honor and creation and expansion and light and making and building and exploring. It is the great Yan energy. The feminine, of course, is about webs and networks, circling and enwombing, nurturing and insight, contraction and shadow. It is the yin energy. The feminine energy by its very nature is inclusive, enwombing, and circling. The masculine energy by its very nature is exclusive. We see this reflected in our chromosomes. The X chromosome, the feminine, contains within it, includes the Y chromosome. But the Y chromosome, by its very design, cannot contain the X chromosome and is exclusive of it. When the masculine energy is predominant, it is exclusive, and there is no room for the feminine, and the feminine must go underground. After the fall, after the full source withdrew, there was chaos here on earth for a long time, until full source began the great in-breath. You can imagine that creation, the great creation, was the great out-breath, and that was complete, and then full source began the great in-breath. And with the great in-breath, full source appointed the great El Shaddai to serve as goddess here on this earth plane, representing full source. Her symbol is blood. Her name means the god of breasts, and she served for 3,273 years here, coming in with the great flood of Noah in tremendous water, the feminine element, and she was the goddess of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Joseph, and her primary story is found in the book of Genesis. Just before the Exodus from Egypt, the great in-breath was completed and a great out-breath began. And El Shaddai's contract was complete, and with the beginning of the great out-breath, the masculine energy became predominant, and full source appointed the great war god Yahweh as full source's deputy here on this earth plane. And Yahweh was an ish milchama, a man of war. And Yahweh served as God on this earth for 3,273 years. And with a strong hand and an outstretched arm, with great force and wonders and miracles, took his people out of slavery, and is the God of the rest of the Torah and Hebrew Bible and Christianity and Islam and the Crusades and the Inquisition and the Holy Wars, and is a fire god and came with thunder and lightning on Mount Sinai, and is the God of fire and brimstone, hell and damnation, and is a masculine exclusive God who will not tolerate any other God beside me. And both El Shaddai and Yahweh are Anunnaki. And in October 1996, the great 3,273-year outbreath of full source was complete. And full source began another in-breath. And with that, the feminine energy came in as predominant on this earth plane. And there was room for the masculine to be included. And Yahweh's contract was complete. And the Shechinah herself came to serve as goddess on this earth plane. And she came at the end of 1996, and it was, you'll remember, an El Nino year. And once again, she came in with great waters and flooding. And we can see the presence of the feminine principle in those great world-changing pieces that came in 1996 and 97 and 98 and 99 with the World Wide Web and the internet, in which all have equal access. There are no hierarchies to determine who has access and who doesn't. Everyone is included in the network. And consciousness raised in huge ways. And rather than this in-breath lasting another 3,273 years, by July of the year 2000, we were enough awash in fifth dimensional oneness consciousness that full source's self could join the Shekhinah here as God on this earth plane. And the in-breath and the out-breath could begin to take place together. And it was the beginning of the great braided breath and the beginning of the writing of the tree of knowledge and the beginning of the merging and uniting of the tree of life and the tree of knowledge into one. We have a long way to go. We know that even 800 years after the coming of Yahweh as God with a small g on this earth plane, archaeologists have found little statuettes of the goddess of El Shaddai in the homes of even the Kohanim, the priests who served in the temple, who were dedicated to serving Yahweh. We don't easily let go of what we know. And so it's just the beginning. But it's the beginning of a new beginning. So sorry. And so once again, take a moment to tune into your being. And notice what's happening inside of you as this story begins to dance and weave its way into the cells of your being. And notice if there is a particular place in your body that's holding more of the sensations, more of the feelings than the rest of you. And if there is, tune into that felt sense place. And take a moment to acknowledge and honor whatever's happening inside of you, whatever those feelings might be. And once again, step back a little bit and see if you might be able to find words or even sounds or even movement that might, in some small way, be able to describe or express whatever is moving through you right now. And when you wish to share, oh, I see some of you already are going for it. We would love to hear ourselves reflected in your words.
I have a question.
So anyway, once I got
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not, is this Paulina?
Oh, I'm Paulina, and Ellie is my friend, so this is perfect. Do you want to ask your question first, Ellie, or should I go ahead?
I'm okay. I don't have a question.
Oh, I misunderstood. I saw something flash on the screen. Maybe it was another Malka. Okay. I'm walking outside. What I feel inside, I felt also as words before, the conflict. I call them bramble bushes. And so it's not peace yet. It's a desire to use my little I, my little ego, how I can serve to hasten and smooth and just birth this process. Because I've been involved in this process my whole life, and especially since 1996. As an artist, as a musician, so I feel moved to want to act.
Amen. Thank you so much for that. Yes, indeed. My guess is you've been involved with it for lifetimes and lifetimes, Paulina. So
indeed.
Yes.
Thank you.
And you're expressing such an intense, almost painfully intense desire from the heart that all of us are carrying. Bless you. Thank you for that. Thank you for giving us words.
And thank you for putting it together. It was the most beautiful expression of unity among all the stories that I've ever heard. You're brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, no. Oh, please. No, there's more. This is just the beginning. And who else would like to share? Please, David, go ahead.
So beautifully told, Ellen. As these stories are coming through you and you're sharing with us, it resonates with such truth for me, like a reminder of, oh yes, that's how it is. That story that I've been waiting to hear.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about the separation.
David, hold the questions for just a moment
Okay.
while we make a mosaic of all of
Okay.
our responses inside, okay? And then we'll get to questions, I promise. And please, oh, Gloria, please.
I am dancing into the new world, especially enjoying the years in the 90s, dancing them.
Hello.
Absolutely, absolutely. And dancing is such a great way to say it. It's almost like you can't sit still with this, right?
Just a second. I was in a program. I have to make it.
Oh, I think someone is speaking but unmuted. Yeah. And who else would like to share? Diana, please.
I feel like this story has given a context to all of these problems that I've been going through in my life, and the breathing. I just wanted to breathe with it to help move the energy out, you know. It's just wonderfully facilitating that movement of the chi, you know.
Yes, as Gloria was also saying, you almost have to just move with it and let it move you, because it's, I mean, we just covered thousands and thousands of years in about 10 minutes, and you can't hold it in your body without, letting it just go and express. Yes. And Peggy, go for it.
So the experience I'm a movement body somatics person. So the experience I had with the first story, I felt a light spiral going up my spine, and my left side was very alive, which is very familiar to me. But my right side was very, And then at the end of this story, I felt like this snake-like light going up through the right side of my body and just continuing until they kind of met like way up here.
Wow.
And I have known in my own body for 50 years that I have a deep division in my own body. And I am feeling like right now, my own coming together and then outwards.
Wow. Thank you. You express it so beautifully for all of us. Bless you. Thank you. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And who else? Oh, please, Joy.
Renatia.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Renatia, please.
I follow with the story and with the flow of the story, but not with the terminology.
Yes.
Like El Shaddai is for me the God who says it's enough. Shaddai, yeah. It's not only the breath, but it's what is enough. And what you say, what in prayer we say. Adonai, as what you say, Yahweh, it comes from the root of being.
Yes.
So that doesn't go with me with this limited or like totally separated male energy, because it's, for me, it's the flow of being and not. And I always have problems when I'm in official Jewish prayer to say Adonai at that point, because it's, for me, I cannot pray in this male form and I cannot pray with the male Hebrew expression. And so I feel like kind of cut off, you know.
I hear you.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
no, thank you. So Yahweh is different from Yud He Vav He, and we'll talk more about it next week. So hang in there. Yes. And I know we always want to bring in our left brain, you know, that holds all of the scholarship and the interpretation and all of that. And it's hard to just say, no, for right now, I'm just going to sit in the heart and see what happens. It's a challenge. So I appreciate your bringing that in for us. Thank you. Yep. I'm sorry, Joy, you wanted to speak.
Yes, what was an epiphany for me is that I have the X chromosome. It is a gift. And if I have a gift, I need to share that gift. I am responsible for sharing that gift and for weaving the community together, for bringing light and joy and togetherness. And so that not only is a gift, but the responsibility to share that gift and to do that work.
How beautiful, how beautiful.
Thank you.
And because you have the X chromosome, you also have the Y chromosome, which is so super, isn't it?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
it's so lovely. And so we're back to Peggy's imagery of, you know, the two great sides finding one another way somewhere. It's not quite in the body yet, but it's on its way. Phyllis, please go ahead.
Okay, can I sort of ask a question? Because I feel a lot like, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your name, Renatia. Because I'm struggling, I mean, I understand this story on an intellectual level, but if I try to put it in perspective of my Judaism, it's really tough.
So hang on to that, and we will get to that next week.
Promise? Because
I promise.
Because it's really a little bit of a struggle to mesh them together.
Don't try.
Okay.
Let's let the story work its way through you. Yeah. Gloria, you want to say something else, please?
Your description of the woman's body buried in the earth as a tree, and feeling that process of the earth now delivering that tree in its fullness and in its blossoming and feeding our neshama, our spirit, and our physical earth.
Yes. Thank you. You know, when I always, you know, do this work for myself. And so as I told the story, this time it felt like all I want to do is sob. You know, there is the pain of the underground feminine that is beginning to burst through and bud and fruit. But there's also the tremendous grief of the disconnected, banished, divine masculine. You know, and all of our men who have had to go away to explore or work or fight and have been disconnected from the juice of the family again and again and again and again and again. And you know, that whole story of the Iliad, you know, of the Odyssey, and Odysseus, just trying to come home, just trying to get home, and the tremendous burden of all the godzillions of Penelopes who have been charged with the responsibility of holding the home front in place until the reunification can take place. And there's just so much pain. that all I want to do right now is just sob. Yeah. And anybody else who wishes?
Ellen, I felt that way too. It's Jenna. And then I had this tension in my mouth and my hands. I couldn't get, my hands weren't comfortable and my jaw was tight. And then I let it go with some tears and I felt grace and beauty. And that,
thank you.
I think it's okay as this feminine comes down, it's okay to be beautiful. That it's not, women aren't going to be objectified as much. It's just beauty. Everything is beauty. Men are beautiful. Women are, it just is. So thank you.
It is that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, indeed. And so let's hold our all of the precious stuff that's moving inside of us. Let's agree to let it work its magic within our beings over this next week. And when we find each other again next week, we'll share what has taken place within us this week. Maybe we can even hold a little area of consciousness about how it's growing us and developing within us and developing us in this week. And we'll be able to share that with each other next week. But for right now, let's now move to that place where you might have some questions. And we'll just take maybe 2 minutes for questions before we close for today. So, David, you had a question about separation.
Yes, and thank you, Ellen. And what a beautiful session. I feel so fortunate to get to be part of this, to witness and participate. So Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh talk about the illusion of separation.
Right.
That we feel there's a separation, and I know there's something about us moving from the 5D to the 3D that creates this notion of separation, of otherness. And yet, I thought I heard in the story that the separation is a current necessity, and it won't go away until the oneness occurs, when the reunification of the divine masculine and feminine. And then all this reminds me of my teachings in the non-duality of Tantra. Can you tie it together?
I'm sorry, tie it together?
Can you explain or tie it together for me, and I'll just listen?
Oh, I don't know that I can, but
only you can.
No, I don't think so. But I think what's lovely about hearing these stories is that we begin to hear that it's up to us. For me, it's also empowering, because whether or not I choose oneness or separation is up to me. It's always a choice. I can choose to stand apart and so judge someone or something or some event onto the continuum of good and bad, or I can choose to not separate myself, but choose to be in equal step with, which is the translation of that word compassion. Com meaning with, PASS is the Latin for a pace. It's an equal step is a pace. So compassion is the action of being in equal step with. And if I choose to be in equal step with, to be in compassion, then I can't possibly choose to stand separate, because I'm walking now shoulder to shoulder with. Yes? So every moment then I have that choice that I can make to be apart, to stand in judgment, or to be in equal step with and be in that place of compassion. And every time I choose compassion, it's like I'm casting a vote for the higher consciousness of oneness. I don't know if that helps at all, but.
Huge, huge, beautifully said. Thank you, Ellen. I'll leave space for someone. I'll leave space for someone else to speak. But there's a volume of thoughts and experiences and comments from that alone. I'll just journal on it. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Phyllis, you also have a question.
Oh, yeah. I work very hard to live my life in compassion. But here's my question. Somebody murders somebody. And I guess I could say, you know, well, I understand they're an addict or they're whatever the issue is. But on the other hand, there's kind of a little bit of a black and white, right and wrong to that. So how do you do that? How do you live in compassion with all the not so nice things that go on around you?
Oh, it's been I lived in Maine for many years, and the maniacs use the word wicked. You know, it's wicked good. And,
Wait, Ellen, did you say maniacs?
Yeah, the maniac. We call ourselves maniacs, right?
That's cute. That's really cute.
And this earth plane has indeed been just a wicked experience. 3D has been a wicked experience. And if we step into that place of compassion with a murderer, then we can begin to know just how incredibly separated out this person must feel, must be, that they could actually take somebody else's life.
So instead of looking at exactly what they did, you almost have to stop and say how they feel.
What's underneath that?
What's underneath what they
And
did?
it doesn't make it good or bad. It just means then that we can meet them at that place of just the most ridiculously crazy, immense, huge pain that we can't even begin to imagine. But compassion enables us to meet them there so that we can begin to walk with that in order to somehow begin that alchemical process of lifting and healing and transforming that incredible aloneness. And so my sweet and beautiful friends, we come to a place where we're going to just honor and acknowledge our heart journey and enable it to continue within our beings. And we're going to walk back into the fullness of ourselves so that we can carry on our lives over this next week, at the same time noticing what's happening within ourselves, and know that this is to be continued. And in the meantime, we can say, dare we say, and we all live happily ever after. Thank you all.
Amen, amen. And we get amen from everybody. Baruch Hashem.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you.